You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay.
What's your name and where are you from?
My name is Joe Eskridge. I'm originally from Halls, Tennessee, which is northwest Tennessee, about 60 miles north of Memphis. Cotton Country is where I'm from originally. Uh, been in Nashville the second time for 9 years. Came up here in the late 90s for a little while, got intimidated, and turned around and hauled it back home. Uh, so this is my second stint in Nashville, and it's 9 years running.
Why did you feel a need to actually move to Nashville?
Well, the music gets in you, and so you want to be surrounded by it, and you want to breathe it, and you want to live it every day with people like you. And so this is the natural place to come. If you haven't been here and you play music, then there's a piece of you that's missing. You may not know it, but there's a piece of you that's missing if you haven't been here and you play music.
Well, what did you leave behind at your hometown when you decided to move to Nashville?
Everything. I sold. I was a business owner. I uh, had begun. I didn't really start writing music. I'd played music since I was a kid. My dad played music his whole life, and so I just played since I can remember. But I never wrote music. And I met a guy back home who breathed songwriting. He just loved it. And so we got to talking one day out on the parking lot of the store that I owned, and he just said, you got to let it go. You got to just write it and don't worry about what people think or say about it. You know, if you feel it, just write it down. You'll see it will become music. And so we wrote a couple of songs together, and I was bit at that point. And it consumed me. I mean, I became distracted with my work, and I couldn't. It was just music all the time. At work, I would have a guitar in my hand, and then I let it all go, and just said, you know what, life is too short. I've got to give it a try. I've got to be around it because it's taking up so much of my time here. I just got to be around it, and so sold out and came up here, and took me a month or two or three before I really felt comfortable even talking to anybody about writing music. One of the things I said, I lived here a long time ago, and I got intimidated and left. I was working for a construction company downtown in Nashville. I didn't write a song, didn't write songs, and I barely could play. And we were working on a Saturday morning around 6:30 in the morning. And it's a building across I don't even know what it is now. It's across the street from Robert's Western World. It was Maggie McGee's back in the day, back then. And we were working on it. And this guy walked by, and it was 6:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning. He had on underwear, boots, and a shirt. And he was carrying a guitar on his back that was strung with fishing string. And I swear to God, the dude sang like an angel. And I was like, son of a gun. If this guy can't make it, if this guy is homeless down here, downtown, singing like this, then this old cat ain't got a chance in the world. And it was soon after that I was just like, you know what, this ain't for me. I'm out of my league, and that's when I went back home. So, but like I was saying a while ago, when it gets in you, you can't walk away from it. You just can't. And so, hence, 9, 10 years later, I'm back. I was back, and I love it. I just love being around it. I love who the people are, kindred spirits, and it's a lifestyle.
When you came back the second time to Nashville, what was the first thing you did when you got here to help your musical career get going?
I looked for a non-intimidating writer's night, and I found one on Craigslist. And I went to it was called the Rush Bar. It was the old King of the Road Hotel downtown. It had a little bar downstairs called the Rush Bar. And there was a guy that had posted needing writers to come to his writers' night at the Rush Bar. It's kind of off the beaten path. It's kind of out of the way a little bit, and there's not a lot of foot traffic there, obviously. So I went in. It was low key. There were maybe a half a dozen songwriters there, and they were the only ones there. And I watched the guy that was hosting, and he could work a room. He worked every one of those songwriters, made them feel special, made them feel like they were straight from Music Row from one of the publishing houses. He made them feel special. And I just watched him. I didn't say anything. As far as they knew, I was just a spectator. And watching him and how and interact with those songwriters, I got comfortable enough to go up and introduce myself and say, "Look, I'm timid. I've never played writers' nights before." And he's like, "Well, there's nobody but us here. Just get up there and play." And so I went up there and played, and they reacted well to a couple of songs that I had done. And so at that point, I guess that's when the confidence switch kicked on, and I was like, "Well, dang it, maybe I can compete a little bit." And because I had heard all of their songs, and I was wowed by them. And so, well, I don't think they're just being nice. I think they really like my songs. So I started going regularly to that one. And then what happens in this town that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world is those 6 or 8 writers that were there also go to another writer's night at another place on another night, and another place on another night. So the formula for me was be as nice as you can to as many people as you can, because you're going to see them again another night of the week in another venue. And I started writing with people at that point. I started getting better at writing and branching out as far as themes go and that kind of stuff. So again, it's just that lifestyle, and it's here and it's the only place that it is here in Nashville. It's just the only place that it's like this, even for fledgling songwriters or novice. Well, I consider myself. There's room for all of them here, in my opinion.
When you got to Nashville, did you find what you expected you would find here? Yeah. Although my wife would say I'm not very mature at times. I think I'm mature enough to realize that there are people who are in it for the right reasons and people who are in it for the wrong reasons. And so the old adage, you stay true to yourself. I mean, it really is that simple. Just stay true to yourself. Wait for the pendulum to swing back your way, because it will eventually. You may not have a number one, but you will write market-ready songs at some point. You just have to keep writing and wait till the pendulum swings your way, and then you jump on it. And so it was what I expected. There are people who take it too serious. There are people who don't take it seriously enough, and you have to find where you fit in that. So there are people who are dog eat dog. There are crooks, but there are some of the most genuine people that you'll ever meet in your life, and you will have lifelong friends. So yeah, I got what I expected. How does the music scene in Nashville compare to the music scene in your hometown?
What I find where I'm originally from, where I'm from is kind of more of a Delta region. I mean, being north of Memphis, you get a lot of Delta blues, and of course Elvis Presley, and then rockabilly stuff. And there are some wonderful, talented people, even in my small town, much more talented than I would ever be. But what's interesting about Nashville, to me, is there are people who can write songs but can't really carry a stage on Friday night or Saturday night. They can't sell, $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 worth of beers. I'm one of those people that can't carry a stage and party. I'm not that kind. I'm not wired like that as an entertainer. And so what I have found back home is that they're more Friday night beer joint kind of talents, and they're wonderful talents, but not really suited for helping me cultivate my writing. And so I didn't really have a lot of relationships there, where the musical relationships there. And here you can go in Target and stand in line and meet somebody, and if you're nice enough to them and they're nice enough to you, you're going to click it off, and you may end up within a week sitting down somewhere and writing a song with them. And you just don't have that in other parts of the country, whether it's a big town or small town, I don't think.
What are some of the pros and cons you found about moving to Nashville? Is it good stuff and bad stuff that's you've noticed that you've been here in Nashville?
Well, the pro and the con in one sentence is you kind of have to watch. Everybody's got an opinion. And the pro is everybody's got an opinion. And the con is everybody's got an opinion. And you have to be confident enough in yourself, not arrogant enough in yourself, but you got to be confident enough in yourself to run with the big dogs, because you're going to end up on a stage with a guy that wrote a number one song at some point. And so you have to be humble but confident. And some of the cons are I've run into some guys who are not very humble, and they'll step on your toes a little bit if you spend too much time around them in the wrong way, in the wrong setting. And so you kind of have to be careful and navigate those waters cautiously, in my opinion. And it may just be more my personality, but that's what I've found to be kind of delicate. Some of the guys I was mentioning earlier, some of them take it a little too seriously. I mean, you come to this town expecting a number one song, you can go to the gas station and buy a lottery ticket, and your chances are probably just as good with that lottery ticket. So take it for what it is. Enjoy it. And the con is, don't take it so seriously that you don't enjoy it anymore.
Well, besides Nashville being a mecca of music, is there anything else that you found in Nashville for your family or whatever that's very appealing or interesting to you guys that has nothing to do with music? The city of Nashville.
It's just a great place. There's art, there's science, you could never walk into a music venue here and still you would have every weekend for the rest of your life filled up with some sort of interesting activity, whether it be theater, whether it be museums, whether it be social events downtown or out in the surrounding communities, Franklin, Goodlettsville, over into Lebanon, and then out on the west side over into Dixon County. There's lots to do here, and it is a melting pot of cultures. I find this area, there's not a lot of negativity here. There is a lot of, it's just a positive vibe to me. Just everything about it. The people are nice. It's a positive vibe. Where I'm from, small town USA, and this is probably, doesn't matter if you're in Texas or New York. Those smaller environments tend to breed a lot more negativity, and you don't find that here. It's a clean city. It's a fun place to live.
If you were talking to other people who were thinking about moving to Nashville, what advice would you give them?
Be prepared to be able to afford it and enjoy it, and not. I encourage them to move here, especially if you play music. I strongly encourage you to move here. It will fulfill an emptiness that I know any songwriter who doesn't live here has. But be prepared enough to be able to enjoy it here. And because if you want to grow as a songwriter, you're going to have to be out 3 or 4 nights a week for a while, working, the writers' nights, meeting people, networking, and that kind of stuff. And you want to kind of be available to do it. And I've met folks here and some of the success stories about moving into town with $100 in your pocket or $20 in your pocket. But I've also met a lot of folks here who were able to move here and focus in on their music right away and get established a lot more quickly because they had done their homework and their prep work back and saved up the money to be able to come here and focus on it and not get so burned out so fast. So I would encourage anybody who songwrites to spend a year or two here. Particularly, I moved back here when I was almost 40 years old. I lived here when I was 25, 26, and I spent a few years here and moved away. But I moved back to songwrite, to be here in the songwriter world when I was nearly 40 years old. So you're never too old to move here. You're never too old to get a hit record. But you need to be able to enjoy it, and I would just encourage them to save up, as Killer Bees would say.
Are you happy you moved here?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no regrets. Not one.
How successful have you been here in Nashville? Tell me some of the things that you've done that you're real proud of since you've been in Nashville.
Well, there's market success, and then there's self-fulfillment. And for me, and I think for probably, well, at least my circle of songwriter friends, and mine has been that self-fulfillment, those minor goals that you set for yourself. You start with getting up the courage to do a writer's night. Then you move on to doing 1 or 2 nights a week where you just book it as part of your weekly schedule. And you meet and you start writing with friends. And then those friendships lead you to writing with someone who is an established writer. And then you move from there, and hopefully someone, whether they're a major artist or a minor artist, whatever, ends up liking one of your songs enough to cut it. Each one's a little stepping stone. I am what I would consider a novice songwriter. I take it seriously enough that I want to artfully craft a song, but my bread is buttered by going to work every day. And I have family that fulfills a need for me. I have 3 sons and a beautiful wife that feel my needs. And I use songwriting the same way a golfer uses, a weekend golf game. And if I get something, it'd be great. If I don't, I'm fulfilled. So the success for me has been being able to make lifelong friendships with songwriters. I cut a record, a full album, a year and a half ago. And for me personally, it was, my wife and I had met a young girl at a benefit we were singing at, and she was just a beautiful girl. And she had these lines drawn, she had leukemia, and had these lines drawn on her head from where they had been doing chemo. And so I took artist liberties and expanded that story, and I didn't even tell them that, that's what inspired it, because in my song that I wrote, it kind of took a different direction. Hers was a positive outcome, a great outcome. And so what I did is I wrote this song and talked to Elizabeth, my wife, about it. I said, you know what, I would really like to turn this into a project, and let's try to do something positive with it and see what happens with it. So we put a project together and we called it Lines. It was that was the title track of the CD. Sold, put a campaign together and sold them and raised what I would consider, because I'm small potatoes, we raised $5,000 for St. Jude, just selling T-shirts and the CDs. And so, for me personally, a hit record would be fine, but that's what I'll always be proudest of. Is I took an idea, went all the way through, created an album, raised money for St. Jude, that was my biggest success, in my opinion. I have been turned down. People ask me when I go back home, they'll say, "So you're a songwriter?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I write songs and stuff." "Well, have you had any cuts? Have you had any hits?" "Well, who's recorded your stuff?" And I'll say, "Well, no, I don't have any hits, but I promise you, I've been turned down by some of the best." And for me, that's success, because I know 20 people back home who didn't take the leap and who will never know. And songs will never be heard by some of the best. And so I was in the game, and that's success to me. I'm in the game.
Well, let's talk about the songwriter community. You know, all you guys who hang out together. I mean, I know you guys like Jeremy and all these guys.
Right.
And y'all go to all these different. Tell me your impressions of the songwriter community.
They are the nicest, sweetest, weirdest, strangest, funkiest bunch of people you'll ever meet in your life. And you will adore every single one of them in some way. There will be something special about every one of them. My circle, my inner circle, I guess, is probably 20 or so. And they are an eccentric group. And I count them very special for that. I think that's what makes it so wonderful is they're just, each one has their own style, and there's 20 different people and 20 different styles, from Gretchen Wilson hardcore country to deeply dark poetic Jim Morrison type poetry music. Lyrics. And so they're very special. And as my circle being the way it is, there are 100,000, 200,000 circles just like that, all in this city limit perimeter of Nashville. And you never know which one you're going to be plugged into. You got your 20, but it's like the 6 degrees of separation. The way that spiders out, you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And I may be digressing from what you were originally asking, but they're wonderful people. And as I was describing the town, the way the town is a while ago, and it's because so many of that type of person are here that it just makes it an interesting place.
If you had to do this all over again, would you still have moved to Nashville?
Oh, absolutely. I just would have probably done it sooner. Absolutely. I would have. That's probably the only thing I would change. I wouldn't change anything else. Because I probably missed out on some relationships by not moving here sooner. I probably could have met more of the type person that now fills my life, that if I would have moved here sooner. But there's not a single regret. There's not a single writer's night I've ever gone to and thought, oh boy, I messed up here. I shouldn't have ever come to this thing. Never once. Because I always took something positive. Whether it was some anecdotal story being told before the song was performed that bred a line for me to use on a future songwriting date, or whether it was a new connection made or that kind of thing. No, I wouldn't change a thing.
So what is the best thing or the coolest part of being a songwriter?
Saying you're a songwriter. There's a mystique to it. It's really, I don't know, it just sounds cool, I guess. Being a songwriter is cool. Being able, it's very difficult for somebody who's not a songwriter to express feelings like that. And we songwriters probably have more emotional arguments with people. We probably are a little bit harder to get along with because we wear feelings on our sleeve. My wife would certainly attest to me being dramatic, I guess is the way to describe it. But being able to put a label on songwriter is kind of a specific label, but it's really songwriter. It's broad. I mean, you're a poet, you're a musician, you're a motivational speaker, you're a preacher. You are a songwriter is a lot of things, and I like being that.
Was there anything that I haven't covered that you'd like to say to people who are thinking about being songwriters or thinking about moving to Nashville? Is there anything that I just totally missed, that a piece of advice you might have to throw out there for someone who wants to do this?
I'll go back to what I said earlier, and that is, don't take it so serious that you don't enjoy it. Don't wear your heart on your sleeve, but not 99% of the people that you run across are not going to get you. They're not going to like your latest song. They're not going to plug into it because it's probably not that great a song. We get lucky every once in a while and we hit on something that's just magical, but for the most part, we're just putting our feelings down on paper. We're lucky to do that. So consider yourself lucky to be a songwriter. Consider yourself successful if you're putting it down on paper and you're able to record it on a little mini recorder. You're a songwriter. Make no mistake about it. If you live in Nevada or Wyoming or North Dakota, you're a songwriter. You don't have to live in Nashville to be a songwriter, but if you want to be a good songwriter, you got to live in Nashville. The people will make you better. The people will fill that void. They will feel that emptiness that you go to bed with every night thinking, there's something missing. There's something missing with me. It is. You're right. When you ask yourself that question, there is, and it's Nashville. It is. You may never make it, but if you move here, you made it. So let that be it. Let the rest of it happen as it's supposed to happen. But you moved to Nashville to be a songwriter, you made it.
That was good, Joe.
Great.
Very good, especially that last part.